The sound wasn't just heard, it was felt. It thrummed through the orbital station's walls, vibrating steel and bone alike. People in the Grand Assembly Hall flinched as the alien warlord's voice poured through the translators, deeper than any human voice should be. The kind of sound you felt in your teeth. "One champion," the alien said, his words slow and deliberate. "One fight. The fate of your species decided in the old way, by honor, by strength, by blood." The station's vast arena loomed beyond him, an open ring suspended over an abyss, lit from below by shifting light from the planet's atmosphere. Behind him, banners of 100 alien clans swayed gently in the artificial gravity, each stitched with symbols older than human history, and at the center of it all stood the warlord himself, towering, wrapped in armor that seemed alive. It breathed. Plates shifted across his frame like the muscles of some great beast, bristling with hooked spines. His eyes, deep and molten red, fixed on the humans clustered at the far end of the dais. It was a trap. Everyone knew it. The duel wasn't just a contest. It was an execution. Win, and humanity would be spared conquest. Lose, and their worlds would be stripped bare. The aliens didn't even hide their smirks. The old way had never ended in the challenger's favor. In the human delegation's row, tension hung, like a drawn bowstring. Generals exchanged tight whispers, diplomats shook their heads. The alien stood there, radiating confidence, his voice resonating in a hall built to make lesser species feel small. No one moved, until a voice broke the silence. "I'll fight!" Heads turned. Captain Elias Ward stepped forward from the line, the faintest smirk curling his mouth, not bravado exactly, but something sharper. His dark uniform was plain next to the ornamental armor around him. No gilded crest, no battle trophies. Just the faint gleam of the insignia at his collar and the controlled poise of a man who had seen more battle than he'd ever admit. The alien's head tilted slightly, as if inspecting a curious insect. "You will fight for your kind?" Ward met, his gaze without flinching. "I'll fight for their future." A ripple went through the hall. Aliens of a dozen species leaned forward, murmuring. Some laughed. Others watched in silence, their eyes sharp. The warlord's teeth, too many for... A human mouth glinted as he smiled. "Then it is settled." The floor shifted beneath Ward's boots, and a bridge of transparent metal extended from the dais toward the arena. The view below was dizzying, miles of empty air before the curve of the gas giant's roiling clouds far beneath. Lightning storms, the size of continents, flashed in slow, silent arcs. The crowd roared, not just the warlord's people, but the hundreds of other alien dignitaries gathered to watch. Duel challenges like this were rare, a human accepting. One, unheard of. Ward walked the bridge without hesitation, each step measured. Inside, his heart beat steady, his breathing calm, and in the faintest whisper, too low for the alien translators to pick up, he spoke into his comm implant. "Tell the fleet. Timer starts now." The words were gone in an instant, buried under the thunder of alien cheers. No one noticed the human delegation exchange the smallest of nods, or the way a single human warship shifted in the void outside, positioning itself ever so slightly. Ward stepped onto the arena platform, the surface, smooth as glass beneath his boots. Above, the banners swayed. Below, the gas giant's storms boiled endlessly. Across the circle, the alien warlord lifted his weapon, an organic blade that pulsed with red light, beating like a heart. Ward's own weapon was simple, a sword of matte steel forged on Earth. It caught no light, no gleam, only shadows. The warlord's grin widened. To him, this was going to be quick. Ward tightened his grip, his eyes never leaving his opponent's. He could feel the alien's confidence radiating across the arena like heat from a forge. Good. The more the alien underestimated him, the better. Because this duel was never just a duel. The arena wasn't anchored to any planet's surface. It floated in the upper atmosphere of the gas giant below, suspended by alien gravitic tethers. From Ward's vantage point, it was like standing on the skin of a dream. Beneath him, clouds, boiled in shifting shades of crimson and gold, torn open by lightning strikes that stretched hundreds of miles. Above, the alien station hung like a predator over its kill, its outer rings lined with spectators. Thousands of eyes, slitted, multifaceted, glowing, fixed on the two figures about to fight. Holodrones circled the arena, transmitting every detail of the duel to systems across the galaxy. Ward stood at one edge of the circular platform, the transparent flooring giving a vertigo-inducing view straight down into the storm. The warlord paced at the opposite side, his armor shifting with a faint rasp of metal on metal. Each step he took left behind faint ripples in the gravity field, war trophies of a species that had fought for millennia. A mechanical voice rang, out in half a dozen languages. Duel will commence in 30 seconds. Combatants, prepare. The alien drew his weapon, and the crowd went silent. It was alive. The blade's surface pulsed with a deep crimson glow, veins of light spreading along, its length like blood through capillaries. The edges shimmered with a heat haze that distorted the air, the hilt fused into the warlord's gauntlet, connecting blade to body as though it were an extension of his will. Ward, by contrast, lifted his sword with a slow, deliberate motion. Forged on Earth, it had no energy field, no plasma core, just blackened steel honed to an edge that could shave the air. It reflected nothing. To alien eyes, it must have looked primitive, weak. The warlord tilted his head, regarding Ward with something between curiosity and contempt. Your people still fight with dead metal. Fitting for a soon-to-be dead species. Ward didn't answer. He just smiled faintly. Inside his earpiece, a voice whispered, barely audible over the hum of the arena's energy fields. Fleet to Sword 1. We're in position. Hold his attention as long as you can. Ward's grip tightened on the hilt. 30 seconds. 20. The crowd began to chant. Not words Ward understood, but the rhythm was unmistakable, the beat of a kill ritual. The sound vibrated in his chest, blending with the steady thrum of the gravitic tethers. 15 seconds. He exhaled slowly, pushing the sound away, focusing only on the opponent in front of him. The alien's stance was perfect. Weight-centered, weapon angled for a first-strike kill. His confidence was palpable. 10 seconds. A sudden wind howled across the platform, whipped up by the storms below. The transparent floor shimmered under. The strain, flickers of light from the gas giant's lightning reflecting off the alien's armor in violent bursts. 5 seconds. Ward's pulse slowed. His vision tunneled, everything beyond the warlord blurring into insignificance. 3, 2. The arena's shield shimmered briefly, locking them in, sealing out the vacuum's bite. Begin. The warlord moved instantly, a blur of motion. His blade screamed through the air, trailing a wake of distorted space. Sparks erupted where it clipped the floor, each one falling endlessly into the storm below. Ward didn't meet the attack head-on. He pivoted, letting the strike slice through. Empty space, the force of it tugging at his coat. The alien pressed forward, relentless, each step a shockwave in the platform's gravity. The first clash of steel on living blade was like a gunshot in a cathedral. Energy flared along the alien's weapon, painting Ward's face in blood red. Light. The crowd roared approval. Ward held his ground, blade angled low, his stance not defensive but patient. Above them, unnoticed by the cheering masses, a faint shadow passed across the stars. A formation of ships, moving in perfect silence, closing in on the station's blind side. The alien didn't see it, and Ward had no intention of letting him look up. The warlord struck again, faster this time. Ward barely saw the motion before the alien was on him, a blur of crimson light and glinting spines. The living blade howled as it cut through the air, the sound almost alive, almost hungry. Ward stepped. Back, the transparent floor under his boots, groaning. A hair's breadth to his left, the blade tore a molten line in the surface, vapor rising from the wound in the arena's skin. The alien didn't pause. He came forward in a storm of blows, slashes, thrusts, feints, each one delivered with the kind of precision only centuries of battle could teach. Every strike pushed Ward toward the edge, toward the abyss yawning below. Far beneath them, the gas giant storms churned like an endless ocean of fire. Lightning flashed through the clouds, throwing the combatants into stark, fleeting silhouettes. Two, figures locked in a dance of death above an alien hurricane. Ward's arms ached from deflecting, redirecting, narrowly evading. He was outmatched in speed and power, and the alien knew it. "You're quick." "For prey," the warlord growled between strikes, his voice rumbling in Ward's chest as much as his ears. "But quickness won't save you." Ward didn't answer. He was listening to the voice in his ear. "Fleet here, passing Moon's shadow. 2 minutes to firing positions. Hold him, Captain. 2 minutes." He had to survive 2 minutes against something built to kill in seconds. The alien lunged again, this time low, forcing Ward to twist aside. The blade missed his ribs by inches but clipped his sleeve, the heat of it searing through the fabric and grazing skin. The smell of burned cloth mixed with the acrid tang of the arena's energy fields. Ward countered, not to wound, but to draw the alien's guard. His steel met the living blade with a teeth-jarring impact, sparks scattering between them. He pushed just enough to make the alien shift his footing, then retreated, baiting him forward. The crowd loved it. The roar was deafening, echoing through the station's structure. Every alien voice carried an electric hunger for the kill. They didn't care who won, they just wanted to see blood. The warlord pressed harder, his strikes heavier now, each blow making the arena shudder. Ward could feel the impacts in his bones. His own sword arm was going numb, but he kept his movement steady, his footwork precise. Above them, in the black beyond the station's shield, Earth's warships slid into formation. They were still invisible to alien sensors, masked by stolen tech and a well-timed approach vector. Ward couldn't see them, but he could feel the seconds ticking away like the beat of a war drum. The alien feinted left, then came in high, the blade arcing toward Ward's neck. Ward ducked low, rolling across the platform, the edge passing so close he felt the heat along his scalp. He came up in a crouch, breathing hard, his steel blade between them. "Running already?" the warlord sneered. Ward's reply was quiet, almost conversational. "Just making sure you're still looking at me." The alien's eyes narrowed. Ward stepped forward, feinting an attack of his own, forcing the alien to block. The clash rang like struck bells, echoing through the arena. Ward felt the vibration up his arms, into his chest, and used it, letting the force push him back just far enough to draw the alien forward again. He needed him locked in, focused, oblivious to the trap tightening above. "1 minute," the voice whispered in his ear. "Almost there." Ward shifted his stance subtly, ready for the next assault. The alien's armor flexed, spines lifting, the living blade thrumming louder as if eager for blood. Then the warlord surged forward, every ounce of speed and strength unleashed in a single killing charge. Ward braced himself, steel catching crimson, the impact shoving him dangerously close to the platform's edge. The transparent floor below him offered nothing but a view of the endless fall into the storms. And still, he didn't break eye contact, because the alien thought this was the fight. Ward knew the real battle hadn't even started. The warlord's blade came in high, then dropped low in a whip-fast feint. Ward saw it too late. The living edge kissed his shoulder and pain exploded through him, white-hot, sharp enough to steal his breath. The scent of scorched flesh filled the air. His grip faltered for a fraction of a second, and the alien's grin widened. Blood dripped onto the transparent floor, glowing faintly under the alien suns above. The crowd erupted in a deafening roar, the sound a single, unified pulse of approval. Ward staggered back, deliberately letting his knees bend, his breath come faster. The alien pressed forward, his armor flexing with predatory anticipation. Every movement said the same thing. It's over. But inside Ward's mind, a different clock was ticking. 30 seconds, the voice in his earpiece murmured. Fleet is in position. We'll have the angle on the station in half a minute. Just keep him busy. Ward let his sword arm sag slightly, enough to sell exhaustion without inviting a killing strike. He knew the aliens' type, warriors who lived for the final blow, who wanted to savor it. If Ward collapsed too soon, the warlord might end it before the trap closed. The alien circled now, slow, his crimson blade humming. You fight well? For prey, he said, his deep voice carrying across the arena. But you bleed like all the rest. Ward forced a pained chuckle. You have no idea. The warlord tilted his head, studying him, perhaps trying to decide if the human was stalling or simply fading. Ward shifted his stance just enough to invite another strike. It worked. The alien lunged, the blade sweeping in a horizontal arc meant to take Ward's head clean off. Ward ducked low, letting the weapon slice through the space where his neck had been, and countered with a quick snapping strike to the alien's side. Steel met living armor with a hiss, not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to sting. The warlord roared, not in pain, but in excitement. The crowd's cheers became a wall of sound. Ward stepped back again, just far enough to make it seem like the counter had cost him. 15 seconds, the voice in his ear said. Ward's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the calculation of timing. He shifted sideways, keeping the alien between him and the largest cluster of spectator platforms. He could already imagine the view when the first salvo hit, shields shattering, structures burning. The alien feinted again, then came in with a downward strike that rattled the platform. Ward caught it on his blade, the impact jarring through his bones, sparks spraying between them. The blow shoved him back toward the edge of the arena. Below, the storms churned like an endless pit of fire. The transparent floor beneath his heels flexed ever so slightly under the strain. 5 seconds. The voice whispered. The alien saw the moment and took it, lunging forward, blade raised for the finishing cut. Ward let him. The strike tore through his side, slicing cloth and skin alike. The pain was blinding, but Ward didn't flinch. He locked eyes with the alien and smiled through clenched teeth. Somewhere above, in the black beyond the station, human warships pivoted into firing formation, missile bays yawning open like the mouths of ancient predators. Mark. The word was quiet in his ear, but it might as well have been a gunshot. Ward's smirk widened. You're going to want to look up. The alien's brow furrowed. Then the sky began to break. The alien's blade hovered inches from Ward's throat when the first shadow fell across the arena. It wasn't the shadow of a ship. It was the shadow of a fleet. Above the station, the stars blinked out, not from distance or clouds, but from vast shapes sliding silently into view. Dozens of human warships emerged from the black, their stealth fields dissolving like mist burned away by sunlight. They came in perfect formation, every angle calculated, every movement deliberate. Their armor caught the alien suns, gleaming. Like the edges of drawn knives, missile bays opened along their flanks, the dark hollows yawning like the mouths of predators. Railgun barrels pivoted, their long shadows cutting across the station's hull. The crowd's roar collapsed into silence. The shift was almost physical, thousands of voices vanishing at once, replaced by the faint hum of the arena's shields. Ward didn't move. He let the alien feel it, that prickling at the back of the neck, that animal awareness that the hunter has become the hunted. Impossible, the warlord breathed, his eyes darting skyward. Ward tilted his head slightly, voice low, enough to cut through the quiet without raising it. You challenged a soldier. You got a species. From the alien high platforms, panic erupted. Commanders barked into comms, hands waving for their escorts. But the duel's rules, ancient, binding, witnessed by every major power, were ironclad. If the warlord fled the arena, he forfeited. And in his culture, forfeiture was worse than death. The warlord's grip on his weapon tightened. His armor shifted restlessly, like it could sense the danger above. In the distance, one of the human destroyers ignited its engines fully, banking toward the station in a slow, menacing arc. Its size was obscene, an armored city drifting in, the void, bristling with weaponry. Ward caught the faint flash of blue light on the horizon as another ship's railguns charged. Even from here, he could feel the rumble of their magnetic coils winding up. The voice in his ear was calm, controlled. All stations green. We have firing solutions on their defense grid, their fleet, and their planetary tethers. One word, Captain. Ward's eyes never left the aliens. Hold. He wanted him to feel it. Every second of helplessness. Every drop of the understanding that humanity had come here not to fight fair, but to win. The alien crowd was in chaos now. Some pressed forward against the barriers, desperate to see, others backing away as if distance could save them from what was coming. Ward took a step forward, closing the gap between them. The warlord's nostrils flared, his blade trembled ever so slightly. This was never about honor, Ward said. It was about control. You wanted the galaxy to see you kill a human in the ring. He leaned in just enough for the warlord to see the cold certainty in his eyes. Now they're watching you lose everything. Above them, the fleet adjusted position in unison, a wall of steel and firepower blotting out the suns. The destroyers held steady. The cruisers formed a tight perimeter. Carrier bays glowed as their doors slid open, revealing the silhouettes of hundreds of fighters. Captain, the fleet commander's voice came again, crisp over the comm. We can take the station in 45 seconds. Just say the word. Ward let the silence stretch, the warlord's breathing harsh and uneven in the still air. In the warlord's peripheral vision, the banners of his people still waved proudly from the station spires. Soon, they'd be ash. Ward stepped back, lowering his blade slightly, not in surrender, but in an unspoken dare. Your move! The warlord's jaw tightened, his molten red eyes flicking between Ward and the growing wall of ships above. And then, high above, the first fighter wings began to launch. Streams of black and silver streaking into formation, engines burning white. The duel was no longer the only battle on the table. It never had been. The warlord's gaze flicked between Ward and the wall of human steel blotting out the suns. For the first time since stepping into the arena, his stance wasn't perfect. Hesitation. Ward saw it, a tiny shift of weight, the barest slack in the alien's guard. It was all the opening he needed. He lunged. The human steel met the living blade in a shriek of metal, sparks bursting between them. Ward pressed hard, forcing the alien back a step. Another. Their boots scraped on the transparent floor, each impact sending faint vibrations into the gravitic tethers holding the platform aloft. The warlord recovered fast, his armor flexing, crimson blade surging with renewed energy. He swung high, a killing arc meant to split Ward in two. Ward pivoted, letting the weapon pass close enough that the heat scorched his cheek, and in the same motion brought his sword across in a brutal slash aimed for the gap between armor plates. It connected, the steel bit deep. Alien armor peeled apart under the sheer momentum, and the blade carved a molten line across the warlord's torso. The warlord staggered, a sound escaping him, a guttural, disbelieving growl. Steam hissed from the wound where his blood, thick and dark, met the arena's charged air. The smell was acrid, metallic, foreign. The crowd gasped, the sound rolling across the station like a shock wave. This wasn't supposed to happen. No one had ever wounded him in the ring. Ward didn't give him time to recover. He pressed forward, every strike now deliberate, punishing. Steel clanged against living weapon, the force reverberating through Ward's bones. He could feel the alien weakening, not from fear, but from the sharp intrusion of reality. He could lose. Above them, the human fleet shifted closer. Destroyers blocked out the last sliver of alien sun. Carrier bays belched out. More fighters, their vapor trails curling like claws across the void. "Captain!" The fleet commander's voice cut through Ward's focus, calm and cold. "Alien fleet is powering weapons. Their planetary tethers are still vulnerable. We can end this right now." Ward's answer came between strikes. "Not yet." The boss. Alien swung again, slower this time, the weight of his own armor dragging him down. Ward slipped inside his guard and drove a boot into his knee. There was a satisfying crack as the joint gave way, and the warlord dropped to one side, his blade dipping. Ward's sword flashed in a vicious upward slash. This time it cut clean through, carving open the warlord's shoulder and severing one of the living armor's spines. The alien roared, dropping to one knee, his weapon's pulse faltering. Ward leaned close enough that the alien could see his reflection in the human's steel blade. "You wanted a spectacle?" Ward said, his voice low and steady. "Congratulations, the whole galaxy's watching you kneel." For a heartbeat, the arena was still. No sound but the hiss of alien blood steaming on the glass floor. The warlord's eyes burned with rage and shame in equal measure. Ward stepped back, raising his sword for the final blow. He didn't rush it. The galaxy needed to see this. The alien tried to rise, but his body wouldn't obey. His blade twitched in a feeble defense as Ward's steel came down in a clean, decisive arc. The sound was sharp and final. The warlord collapsed, the living weapon dying in his grip, its crimson glow fading to black. His armor slackened. Plates, shifting one last time before freezing still. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in shocked uproar. The rules were clear. The duel was over. Humanity had won. Ward turned his back on the body, not from disrespect, but from certainty. He walked to the center of the arena, sword hanging loose at his side, and looked up at the human fleet dominating the sky. "Now," he said into his comm. Above, the destroyer's engines flared. The war hadn't just started. It had already been decided. The warlord's body was still cooling when the first human missiles streaked across the alien sky. From the arena's suspended platform, Ward could see them, silver lances cutting through the void, contrails burning bright against the black. They moved with impossible precision, weaving between orbital defenses as if they already knew where every shield generator and gun emplacement was. They did. "Fleet," Ward said into his comm, his voice like cold iron. "Execute storm protocol." The alien audience barely had time to understand the words before the heavens ripped open. A carrier group positioned high above the planet's magnetic field unleashed a wave of railgun slugs the size of shuttles. They fell like meteors, punching through orbital platforms that had stood for centuries. Each impact flared white-hot, then blossomed into expanding clouds of fire and debris. The arena shook, a deep vibration running through the transparent floor. Beneath Ward's boots, across from him, alien guards clutched their weapons but didn't move. Their warlord was dead. Their chain of command was shattered. Above, alien battleships rallied, engines flaring as they surged toward the human fleet. They fired plasma bolts that could slag a city in seconds, but Earth's destroyers rolled aside, countering with salvos of smart torpedoes. The torpedoes didn't aim for the ships themselves at first. They hit the tethers, those massive space elevator lines linking the orbital defense ring to the planet's surface. When the first tether snapped, it was like watching a skyscraper fall in slow motion. Segments tumbled downward, burning through the atmosphere in streaks of orange and blue. On the ground, alien cities screamed into life with sirens. Civilian craft scrambled to escape, but the human blockade tightened, cutting off every exit vector. Humanity wasn't here to conquer. They were here to make sure no one mistook mercy for weakness again. Ward turned his head slightly, watching the chaos without flinching. "They'll remember this," he murmured. The alien captain of the arena. Guard stepped forward, mandibles clicking in disbelief. This is annihilation. We called for a duel." Ward's eyes locked on him. "And you lost. Your warlord's challenge wasn't about honor. It was a public threat. That's war by another name." The station's artificial gravity flickered as a nearby detonation rocked the hull. Through the arena's panoramic viewport, one of the alien dreadnoughts split in half under concentrated human fire, its spine breaking apart in a flash of molten light. On the planet below, targeted strikes hit shipyards, military command nodes, and weapons factories with surgical precision. Humanity wasn't wasting munitions on civilian targets. They were tearing out the war machine at its roots. The alien guard captain's voice dropped to a hoarse rasp. "If you destroy our fleets, our people will never forgive. We will rise again." Ward took a step closer, his presence heavy as a storm front. "Then you'd better rise faster than we can drop you, because next time we won't stop at your fleets." High above, human bombers swept over the remaining orbital defenses, their afterburners flaring in synchronized arcs. Precision strikes hit fuel depots, causing chain reactions that lit up the void like miniature suns. The alien audience, thousands of them still frozen in the arena stands, watched their empire burn in real time. Every explosion was a message. Every flaming wreckage a line in a sentence Earth had been writing for centuries. Do not provoke humanity. Ward's comm chimed again. "Primary objectives neutralized. Secondary targets awaiting confirmation." He didn't hesitate. "Proceed." The last tether snapped, falling like a broken limb into the alien atmosphere. The sight silenced the arena completely. Ward knew they were beyond the point of return now. This wasn't just victory. It was a demonstration, a memory the galaxy would try and fail to forget. As the alien fleet's remnants began their retreat, human ships tightened formation, cutting off stragglers. The battle was already over, but the statement wasn't finished. The storm was still rolling. The silence after the storm was worse than the battle itself. Smoke coiled in the blackness of space, drifting in slow, twisting shapes. Shattered warships hung like corpses suspended in the void, their hulls split open to reveal the cold skeleton of alien steel. Ward stood in the arena, his boots planted on the trembling platform as the last explosions faded from the planet below. "It's done," he thought. But even as the words formed, the air still smelled of ozone and scorched circuitry. The alien audience hadn't moved. They weren't spectators anymore. They were witnesses, and witnesses carried stories. "Broadcast," Ward ordered. His voice, hard as tempered steel, carried across the alien communications grid. The human fleet patched his image into every surviving station, ship, and city within range. The screens filled with his face. His eyes were shadowed, but sharp. 2 points of unwavering focus. "You called for a duel," he began, his tone measured but heavy enough to press on the chest of everyone listening. "You wanted spectacle. You wanted to humiliate humanity before the galaxy." He paused, letting the stillness gnaw at them. "This was your duel. And this," he swept his arm toward the burning wreckage in the stars, "is what happens when you mistake us for prey." Across the alien world, civilians stopped in streets and homes to watch. In military command bunkers, surviving officers stared at the feed without speaking. The silence wasn't respect. It was the sound of realization. Ward continued, his voice lowering, pulling the galaxy closer. For centuries, we've kept to our borders. We've stayed out of your wars. We've given quarter where none was due. We've let you think Earth was just another system on your map. And maybe you forgot the old stories, the ones your ancestors whispered about the first time they saw our fleets. He leaned closer to the feed. You remember now. Behind him, a carrier group passed in formation, their engines glowing blue, their silhouettes cutting across the burning horizon of the alien planet. Each ship was a blade in the dark. This isn't conquest, Ward said, the words sharp enough to scar. We don't need your territory. We don't want your resources. What we will take, every single time, is our dignity. And if you ever threaten it again, there won't be a war. There will be erasure. He cut the feed. In orbit, the human fleet began to pull back, not in retreat, but in precise, disciplined withdrawal. The mission was over. The statement had been made. The alien guard captain from earlier still stood in the shadows of the arena, his mandibles trembling. Why spare us now? He asked. Ward turned his gaze on him, unreadable. Because dead enemies can't tell the story. But survivors keep the fear alive. Below, the planet's night sky was lit by the slow fall of the final tether. It burned in the atmosphere, breaking apart into glowing fragments that rained down into the seas. Ward walked away from the platform, the alien crowd parting before him. None dared meet his eyes. He didn't need to push past them. The weight of what they'd seen cleared the way. A young human ensign met him at the shuttle bay, her voice low. Sir, the galaxy's watching. Every relay, every network, it's all carrying your speech. Good, Ward said, stepping into the transport. Let them keep watching. Let them tell their children what happens when they call us out. As the shuttle disengaged from the arena and rose toward the flagship, Ward took one last look at the alien world. Fires still burned across its surface, but the human fleet was already fading into the black, leaving behind nothing but memory. The kind of memory that didn't fade. The galaxy would redraw its maps. Not because Earth had taken new territory, but because no one wanted to be next. And somewhere, in the silence between the stars, the old truth returned. Humanity didn't start wars. But when provoked, they ended them.